is going to be about radio, and we're really excited. We have, is Lana here today? I don't see Lana. Lana Clausen, Dennis Boy's daughter, was coming today, but maybe she'll be here after a bit. Just so you know, the Dennis Boy and his family have been very generous to us, and as the movie theaters and the radio station have been sold and closed, they have given us many wonderful treasures. And so this is just kind of a little teaser of some of the things that they have given us. And we have a regional engineer expert here with us today who's going to take over, and he's going to talk about this and anything else he wants to talk about. Mr. Muir. Mr. Muir is here today, Tommy Messerli. And so please welcome him. We're going to talk about everything except politics, right? Okay. And Sheri Melvold, who will also ask to join in whenever. Okay. So Tommy's going to explain a little bit about this magnificent artifact that we just got. We're going to talk a little bit, maybe see a couple of pictures about the old radio station, and hear a little bit from Dennis Ford from the tape. Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I am the charming and ever so delightful Mayor Tom. Great to be here with you. I just found out about this morning.
I'm trying to see if it's loud enough.
Is it loud enough?
Is it loud enough?
No. Remove the microphone.
Okay, we're gonna slide you over. Just go that way. Just a teeny bit. Okay, try again. We get buzzes.
Hello.
He promised to come back and fix all this for us.
He sounds like a radio guy.
That's right.
All right, well, I found out this morning about 8:30 that I was tapped to come do this, so I didn't really get a lot of time to prepare. But I'm here to talk about this original radio council for KMAQ. And believe it or not, it's 2 years older than I am. And I think it and I have both had the same number of surgeries. I've been an engineer for 30 years of my life. One of the places I was chief engineer at was KMAQ. And this whole council was the original AM council that they had when KMAQ was just an AM station. The FCC had the small market 3K upgrade that little stations could apply for, and Dennis applied for it and got a package from Harris Communications, which involved a new tower, transmitters, the whole 9 yards. And one of the things was a new council. So this thing got pulled out, taken down, and put in the production room. And it was used in the production room then for right up until 5 years ago. About 5 years ago, we finally took it out. It does still work, to the best of my knowledge. You can hook it up and go. It does take about 25-30 minutes to warm up. Depending on the day and depending upon what kind of mood it's in you're in, it may or may not have a hum or static on it. But it is from the era before transistors and before all this high-grade electronics. So it does have that, what I always call that sweet, mellow, if you have a deep voice, it really sounds good. And but this kind of board was used on a lot of the big stations. If you were a 50,000 watt blowtorch AM, you probably had one of these back in the 60s and 70s. They're pretty strong. They go good. Again, it was mono, meaning only in one channel, which is what AM radio is. But FM is stereo. You have a left channel and you have a right channel. So I sat down and rewired this and made what's called dumb stereo, so that it could be used in an emergency on the FM and it could be used in the production room to make stereo commercials. And it's been a good soldier. I'm glad that you guys got it down here. I'm glad that the family decided to give it to you, because it's a piece of art. You look inside of it, it looks pretty simple, but then when you take the covers off, it gets complicated. It is probably just a tiny bit older than KMAQ AM's original transmitter. So we're on the third generation for the AM and we're on the fourth generation for the FM transmitter. So with any luck at KMAQ, the new owners will want to go to HD stereo and then get into the 800 megahertz band to be top of the dial. There is some work about maybe making the AM be a subcarrier of the FM so that you can get the radio on AM on FM. And there's a lot of changes going on in radio. And I think the new owners will take advantage of every change they can get. So, I guess that's really all I got to say. This little girl's a good work. Yeah.
I want to ask a question. What was the latest you heard on this taking AM radio out of vehicles?
I don't think they'll be able to do that. As many of you know, a lot of people are trying to get together to get AM radio taken out of cars. The FCC probably won't go along with it. Probably won't let them do that because the FCC makes a lot of money on AM radio stations and AM radio. So they're gonna.
Why do they want to take it out?
Just people, car manufacturers don't want to have to buy radios. It's a cost-cutting measure, and let's face it, everybody listens to AM radio at some time. If you want a good talk show, you got to go on AM. The old border blasters, you know, broadcasting around 300,000 watts AM, and you could hear them from coast to coast. Those days are gone, but they'll be around. They'll be around for a while. For those of you that don't know, KMAQ, the sale went through, was approved by the FCC a week ago, and both parties got together yesterday afternoon, the papers were signed, it's all said and done, all over but shouting. So I officially got to retire and move out since the sale, so I'm happy about that. I'm just there as a backup in case it's on fire. or to tell where the bodies are buried. And, but yeah, so I'm glad about that. And I think the new owners, they're a progressive group, and they will, I think, be really good for our town. They want to be involved in just about everything. Like with most businesses, it's hard to find help. And if anybody's looking for a job, and you want an easy job, and let me tell you, there's nothing easier than talking on the radio. They hire you. I mean, if you can breathe and comb your own hair, they'll hire you. So, but yeah, I think these guys will bring good things to the community. You know, Dennis was a fixture here, and I mean this with all the love in my heart. Dennis's way of doing business is not these guys' way of doing business.
Right.
And Dennis didn't like change, and these guys do. And so I think it'll be good. I think it'll be real good for them. So I guess that's really about all I have to say. If you got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Like I said, I didn't get much time to prepare for this. That's it.
Do you have questions for Mr. Mayor?
Stick around.
That's right.
How much control, if any, does a station or the equipment have on how the personality sounds? I mean, does it change them a lot, or can it change them a lot?
Yeah, you have what's called a voice processor, and you can change them. If you've got a little style in your voice, you can sound like $1 million on the radio.
It sounds like there's a little to learn on how to do that, though. But there's they have a lot of control over that.
There's quite a bit of control. The secret is knowing what and how to control it. A lot of people, when they first are introduced to something like that, they will make the process sound what's good in their headphones, which is not how it really sounds. And like, you know, I've worked at a lot of stations, both on air and as an engineer, where everybody has a voice processor. It's just, you can tell the ones that know how to use it and the ones that don't. So yeah. But yeah, if you can talk like this, you can go a long, long ways in the big radio.
When you're on the radio, do you normally use the headphones, or do you when you're talking on the radio, do you normally go with headphones or without headphones?
I personally go without.
So you're saying it sounds different in your headphone than it does over there?
In your head, you do not sound anything like you really sound.
Right. Yeah.
Even now, or even with headphones. Yeah, you have no idea. You may think it sounds good, but it's not. It's a completely different sound. And it takes a long time to learn to get through your head that you don't sound like you think. Anybody else? Now's your chance. Anything you want to know about the city?
This is not exactly a question, it's just a little story, but maybe you have some stories similar. I was listening to, this was a radio station in Dubuque one night, and all of a sudden there was all this shuffling and rustling and carrying on in the background of the music, and then you could hear the announcer or the DJ drop some pretty colorful words. Is that because he forgot to shut something off?
Yeah, somehow the mic got turned on.
Okay.
Well, every radio station had, you know, there are 7 bad words you can't say on the radio or TV, which I tell you, but I get thrown out.
We can guess.
Are those George Carlin's words?
They are the exact 7, and there's a couple more been added. But every smart radio station, KMAQ did happen to be one of the smart ones. You have a dump switch. If you say something, you got a few second delay from the time you would say it to the time it gets through the processors, down the internet, up to the tower, and up the tower, and out in the air. Quick enough, you were smart enough, you hit that dump switch, and it interrupts that 10 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever you had it set for. And, yeah, and $50,000 per word.
Fine?
Fine, yeah, it's $50K per word.
And do you always get caught?
Question, does the radio station cover insurance for stuff like that, or how does that work?
It's almost cheaper to set $50,000 aside.
Who pays that? The person?
The announcer. Unless you're at a big station where you have a contract and they will cover that insurance for you maybe one time. But it happens so rare, and anymore, I can't just call and say, he swore on the radio. They have to have proof that you swore on the radio. Somebody taped it, you're done. It's over, all over. But let's say it's not everybody's taped on the radio. But it happens. It happens. The FCC, like I said about the AM radio thrown away, there's a lot of rules and a lot of regulations. And you have to follow all of those rules and regulations. And if you don't, they'll be right there to get some money from you. And I always found it funny that a few years ago, I'm sure all of you know, you've heard about HD radio, where they allowed the FMs to piggyback their signal on an 800 megahertz digital signal, so you could hear them all over the country. Personally, I thought that was a dumb idea, but okay. But they made it so that stations could do this. And a lot of stations wanted to hop onto it. But then they started figuring out the fees. Everything with the FCC's got a fee attached to it. You can't even call them up and say, hey, what time is it? And they'll say, oh, it's $20, and we'll tell you. They paid a lot of money in dishing out those FM high band signals. And the same way with AM. They're changing all the rules with AM radio to allow them to narrow the bandwidth a little bit so they can squeeze maybe a couple more AM stations in there, and that's going to cost quite a bit of money, but there's a lot of people who are willing to do it. So, yeah, government's about making money. So is radio. Yeah.
Is there a limit to the number of AM stations and FM stations like in the state of Iowa? Or are they just unlimited?
If there's, the only limitation is there room to drop that signal in? If I wanted to 1320, so for about a 100-mile radius of Macokota, there's not going to be another 1320 AM. And probably 70-mile radius for the FM at 95.1. It used to be 95.3 when we were at 3,000 watts. The FCC had this, FM upgrade that you could get. Believe it or not, Dennis actually took it, and was able to take it up to 5,000 watts, or 6,000 watts, 5,000 out of the transmitter. But the antennas will add power to your signal. But we had to move from 95.3 to 95.1 because there's another 95.3 out near Des Moines, and we would be interfering with them. So that's why we had to move down a notch on the dial. Yeah, there's many stations you can fit on the dial without interfering with anybody. You can have it.
I love that they're on 24/7. I know it's automated at 2 a.m., but it's cool.
We used to talk to Dennis all the time about why don't we go off the air at 10 o'clock?
We used to go off at 6.
Not anymore.
Didn't they used to go off at 6 on Sundays?
Sundays at 6, yeah. But Dennis was slow to change.
Yeah.
But for about 6 months, for whatever it's worth, this was a couple, 3 years ago, we were on the air 24 hours a day because they couldn't get parts for the transmitter. We didn't dare shut it off. We just let it run. Dennis said, you got that transmitter fix it? I was hoping to go long enough to let it stay, but he wanted it off. Yeah.
Can we tell how many are listening to your channel? How do you keep track of that?
You have to get ratings. There's Nielsen Company, which does it. They're very expensive. There's Chatter, which will do it. And they basically, for radio, they would give you a paper to fill out for a week. And what time of day you're listening to it, or what channel you're listening to. Do you have it on the background as noise, or you're sitting there getting entertainment from it? There are a number of questions per day and how many hours a day you do. You send it back in, and then that's how they produce what your ratings are. It's called the day point, and that's how that works. Anybody else? Last chance to learn about radio.
Oh, no, it's not, we're not letting you leave yet.
Oh, it's been a good business. I did get to retire from that when this went through, and I have to say, well, a lot of stations, big and small. I've been a chief engineer for a long, long time, and I'm proud of the work I've done. And, yeah, I was on the air at KMAQ. I probably irritated a lot of people. I know when I first started there, way back when KMAQ played a lot of Lawrenceville type music.
Are you saying you're all done doing the dispatch show then?
No, that's part of my retirement package. I had to agree to come in 2 hours a week and do that show. So,
And if anybody wants to be on, let me know.
yeah, Sheri's the booker for it. She retired from the show, but she does the booking. So yeah, if you want to be on, we'll talk to you. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Who determines what music played is now? Because it used to be a lot more Lawrence Welk and the older music. But I notice when Brent Massey's on, he's bringing that younger music up quite a bit.
Right now, you can, it's always been, you can pick what you want to play. Whoever's on there, you know, some people have a taste for country. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so classic rock is what I like. Dennis, of course, he liked the old Lawrence Welk music, and so everybody's played what they like. Now, they have a chart, I can't think of what the name is. It's a new thing they come out with in radio, but it's a genre chart. And during this 10 minutes you play an old song. During this next 10 minutes you play a country song. Or you play a AC song in this 10 minutes. You can pick whatever song you want. It just has to be pegged from that genre. And then you can tell the automation computer to play some, just go randomly pick one of this type of genre, this type of genre. It's, yeah, you know, computers do a damn good job on the radio.
Is that selection of genre based on the advertiser's desire? Whoever's paying for ads during that time?
It can be.
But that's not typically how it works.
Depends on the station. The bigger stations, yes. It is, you can pay to have, you know, Tom's Last Chance widgets buys 20 minutes worth of time on the air. And I said, I want it to be hot AC, hot adult contemporary rock. They can program it to do that. They can also put it. KMAQ has had this function, I'll say, for over 8 years. We did talk Dennis into buying, going all digital. With no CDs, we have a lot of CDs, but all the music is stored in a giant hard drive. And there's over 7,000 songs in there. Country, rock, even big band, Lawrence Welk music is on there. And whatever you wanted to hear, you know, you can just go in there and dig it up. Hold it over, click, click, and away it goes.
The spots on card or these on digital?
It's all digital too. It's all digital too. That's the other reason that this was taken out of service, because your control boards have to be able to accept the digital input signal. Both KMAQ AM and FM, all of it is digital in the studio. The music's all digital, the commercials are all digital, the voice is not digital, but it goes through a digital processor. It's run through what's called a barracks box, which is hooked up to the internet. It sends a signal out to the tower digitally, another decoding box out there. It decodes that digital signal to an analog signal, so 2 channels left and right can go to the FM, 1 channel can go to the AM. And that's how your music gets up there. And we have one that goes to Bellevue at 92.5, where we have our repeater, and it goes up there digitally too. There is about a 2.5-second delay from, if you're sitting in the studio and listening to the off air, it will delay and confuse you really bad, because you hear yourself talking, then you hear yourself talking, then you hear yourself talking. But that takes some getting used to learn how to get around there. Yeah.
When it gets to the antenna, can you target where that signal goes? Can you send a stronger signal to Bellevue and a weaker one out to the boondocks, say?
To a point. AM is all around, so out, same power in all directions, unless there's something really close, like a silo that's really tall, it would eat a hole in it. It's signal. AM signal is kind of like a poor, or excuse me, FM signal is kind of like poor Valentine heart. It's round, at some point it curves in just a little bit. And that point where it curves in, your antennas are sitting on the top of the tower, right? The round part is what's shooting away from the tower. The curve back in is the backside of that tower that the antennas are on. And that tower then eats up that part of the signal. So you probably lose, on KMAQ, 6,000 watts, and I should say the transmitter is 5,000 watts, but the antennas builds gain and give it an extra 1,000 watts. That's why there are multiple bays, because the signal round and round and round in the bay, and it gets stronger every time. I would say it probably knocks about 5 to 7 miles off the signal going to the northwest. That's how that works. Yeah.
Tom, can you tell us a little bit about your work with the equipment? How expensive is it, and how often do you have to update it? That's kind of your job.
Well, it ain't cheap. Probably 2 years ago, we had a big storm come through town and took a lightning strike on a telephone pole which had the transformer to the station on it. It blew the transformer off the tower and made the bank go black. And the station was off the air for about 3 days. And that lightning ran loose in the building and blew up all the consoles, blew up all the computers, blew up just about everything. And to get it back on the air, I think, and again, we weren't allowed to buy high dollar stuff. We weren't allowed to buy what we needed to buy to get it back on the air. That probably cost about $12,000 just to get it back on the air, the 2 studios. It can be pricey. What else? Last chance. If you want to buy a radio station, I recommend it.
Don't go away.
Okay.
All right. So, thank you.
Take a moment.
So we were going to show you, we're having a little computer problem. Today it's not going the way it was planned, but it's awesome. And I thank Tommy for coming in at the last minute. Supposedly people at the radio station are sick today.
Yes.
So we had to make some adjustments. Then our computers didn't work. But I wanted to just show you if it will work, thanks to Mary and Karen. Just a couple pictures, and it's not going to work. All right, I'm not going to show you a couple pictures because it won't change. We have 2 projectors, and you think that one of them would work, one of them's almost brand new. All right, I'm not going to show you any pictures. So what I'm going to do instead, don't go away. So we have a really neat cassette player from it's Dennis doing a Just Talk program on the 25th of August 2021. So like only three or so years ago. And he's talking about how he came to Coconut and how he got started with radio. And he entitled it The First 12 Years of KMAQ on the Air. So we're going to play that. Okay, we hope. So.
This is KMAQ.
Advanced tree technology on the market. And it's not new to Pioneer. Pioneer experts and agronomists have already completed hundreds of on-farm trials.
Please hear that.
All so that acres like this have healthy soybeans with great yield potential. Enlist E3 soybeans on a farm in Olivia. Another thing that makes Pioneer, Pioneer. You'll hear more from me later. For now, let your local Pioneer sales representative hear from you.
That's one of the first ads. You recognize that, right?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, August 25th edition of Just Talk here on KMAQ. I'm Dennis Hoy, and I'm hoping that you'll stay around because we should have an interesting program today. And first, though, we're going to take a quick look at the weather forecast brought to you by the Maquoketa State Bank. After some late afternoon rain and some overnight rain, with a couple of inches of rain on the ground, we are looking for maybe some more rain this morning. But if not, it's going to be a sunny afternoon, and we're going to get up to 89 today with a calm wind. A 40% chance of rain tonight after 4 a.m. and a low tonight at around, probably 69. Thursday, tomorrow, a 40% chance for more rain and partly sunny with a high of 87. Thursday night, a quarter to a half an inch of more rain is possible. And Friday, Football Friday, a 50% chance of rain, but also mostly sunny. And the Friday high should be 90 degrees. So we're going to have a very warm start of the weekend again. Friday 90, Saturday 92, but Sunday only 86. Yesterday's high was 93. Our low this morning after around 5 o'clock was 68. Right now we're at 73 here at KMAQ. And the world may be changing, but some things never change. People naturally like to bank where they feel welcome, where they're not a number, and where their business is appreciated. The Coconut State Bank believes strongly in serving their clients. They take time to really know their clients and provide the kind of service they deserve. The Coconut State Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender, has just brought you the weather forecast.
Yay!
I have no me here in the studio.
Okay, listen.
Marquee type letters spells out August 26, 1958. And below that is a shelf with some historical things about KMAQ, including our first control board on the back wall. So it's kind of our history wall. August the 26th is tomorrow, and tomorrow is KMAQ's 63rd birthday. Can't celebrate here on Just Talk tomorrow because we have the Master Gardeners on the show tomorrow. So I thought I'd take today to just talk about the very early days of KMAQ when we were not situated where we are now on North Main, but we're in the main block of downtown Maquoketa. So I'm going to concentrate on those 12 years and just see what things I come up with while thinking back about those great early days of KMAQ in the great 50s. It all began with me in radio when in high school. When I was a junior and senior in high school, I and two other friends who were interested in electronics and radio decided to build a low-power radio station for our hometown of Horicon, Wisconsin. That, by the way, is the home of famous John Deere garden tractors. And so we put the radio station on the air, and we operated it 1 year for about 3 months, evenings. Then we took it off the air, and then we brought it back again a year later and put it on the air for another 3 or 4 months. So I got my taste, you might say, of radio while still in high school, and it never left me. When I graduated in 1957, I signed up to go to a Columbia College School of Broadcasting in Chicago, and did that in the fall of 1957. Stayed at the YMCA Hotel, is on Wabash Avenue, and was there about 3 months and decided this was not a school that I thought it would be. It was okay, I guess, but it just lacked what I thought I wanted out of a school and or a college. So I decided to drop out and try something else and leave Chicago. So I came back to Horicon, and I got the job where I had worked before in a Chevrolet garage, and so I worked there until February of 1958, and went to the University of Wisconsin and took in a semester there. And that summer, I decided I'm not going to go back to Wisconsin either. I want to get into radio. And while I was at Wisconsin, I had looked at the library at a magazine entitled Broadcasting Magazine, and I noticed there where new stations were being built. There was a new station going on in Maquoketa, Iowa. So I checked that out and found out that they were from Monroe, Wisconsin, the owners of it to be. 3 men from Wisconsin, from Monroe. And I decided I would try and get a job at that news station in Iowa. I had always been told when you want to get into radio, 2 things will help you. If you don't have much need for money, they don't pay much in a new radio station. And secondly, you don't have to be really a polished announcer to get started either. So I went over to Monroe one day and talked to one of the owners, the main owner, that was interested in building the station. And after another visit to his brother later on and a couple letters, I got the job. And I came to Maquoketa on August the 19th of 1958, a week before we went on the air. I remember coming in I borrowed $700 from my dad and bought a 1953 DeSoto a big green car, really a nice one. And I made my trip down to Maquoketa, coming down Highway 61 with the narrow road that it was, and pulled into the city of, by then I had realized, though it was not Maquoketa, that it was Maquoketa. And so I parked in downtown Maquoketa right away and looked for the location of the station, which was at 136.5 South Main Street. That, incidentally, is now the home of the Maquoketa Cafe that many of you frequent, and I do too. And KMAQ was upstairs in that building. And so I walked up to the front stairway. There's a long stairway up there. Walked up the stairway, and meeting me at the top of the stairway was the owner, one of the three owners, Nate Getz, from Monroe. And he welcomed me, and that was my start at KMAQ. When I went around with him and looked at the station, they were still doing carpenter work on it. They were doing last-minute electrical work, and the engineer at the time, Ray Shields, was doing some last-minute wiring of the equipment. So I really joined the station a few days before it went on the air, when they were just finishing up what needed to be done. And I seemed to be pretty happy with the staff. Ray Shields, who, by the way, is a brother of Red Hinton, was the engineer. He's the one that built the station. He had the knowledge to do that. And he was also one of the announcers and had a very deep voice. And he was a great guy, had a fine personality. And I met Stan Barton. Stan Barton was a bachelor from Dubuque and was the hired news director. So he was the first news director. I also met Robert Brown. And Bob Brown was from Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. Had been in radio for some years and also in newspaper work. And he was the first manager of KMAQ, another nice guy in his 30s. And so got to meet him. We had two ladies in the front office. One was Gita Bollinger, and she was what we call our traffic girl that made up the logs every day and answered the telephone. And then I think Jane Bean, who is the minister's wife of the Baptist Church, was our bookkeeper. And that basically made up our staff, except for the sales department. Our salesman, our chief man in the sales, was Dwayne Willie, who many of you remember back in the early days of KMAQ. Dwayne Willie was the sales manager. So that was the staff at that time, and it was KMAQ AM only at that time. FM was pretty new yet. There weren't a lot of FM stations around. And KMAQ AM at 1320 in those days could go on at 6 o'clock in the morning, but every month the sign-off was different. And in fact, during the colder, the shorter days of the year, it would get off pretty early. During the month of December, always, we signed off the air at 4:30 in the afternoon. It was a shorter day. I recall that Ray Shields, the engineer, was the morning announcer, and he signed the station on at either 5:30 or 6, and stayed with it until 8:30, and then Stan Hart, after he, Stan, the newsman, would come on after the morning news, and he was the disc jockey until about 10 o'clock, and then I came on, and I was on from 10 until 12 noon, and that included our first polka party at 11:30 until 12. Ray Shields would come on again from 12 until 1, and then I was on for most of the afternoon until sign-off, except on longer days we had hired some part-time announcers. 9:15 market time, don't play.
So maybe we could fast forward through the market day. And maybe not.
Upholstery in Maquoketa looks forward to servicing your vehicle for you. They'll get the job done right and back on the road fast. Back on Just Talk on this Wednesday morning, talking about the early days of KMAQ, which celebrates birthday number 63 tomorrow. You just couldn't build a radio station if you wanted to go ahead and do it, because of course radio stations are licensed by the Federal Communications Commission. Nate Getz, one of the three partners from Monroe who had been having an interest in radio, noticed that there was the frequency 1320 assigned to Maquoketa. So he applied for it 2 years ahead of time. be taken out every morning to all of the restaurants in Macoconut early so that people, while enjoying their breakfast or coffee, could read the news and weather and also hear how KMAQ is doing. So during that week that I was here, before the actual full day of broadcasting, one of my jobs then was to take that newsletter around all of the restaurants in town, and there were quite a few of them then. And also my daily job was to go and check box 940 at the post office. So I started making my daily trip a block and a half to the post office every morning. And also we needed some records to get started. And so I was put in charge of establishing, buying, getting some in the mail because we're a new station opening. And so I was kind of in charge of getting the record department going while waiting to go on the air. Then all of a sudden we got the word, I think it was the 24th or 25th, that we could sign on the air for our first full day of broadcasting on August the 26th. And that was exciting. We went on the air at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, I forget. And of course we were all around excited about it. And so we went on the air for the very first time for a full day on August the 26th. And the fun part of it was that we got phone calls from throughout the area on people who were saying, hey, I hear you loud and clear. Glad to have you on the air. So we got lots of comments from people. There were very few small-town radio stations in those days. People were really kind of surprised that Macoconut was getting one. And to this day, there are many towns our size that don't have a radio station because the FCC just ran out of frequencies. Macoconut was lucky to have 1320 assigned to them in the very beginning. Cedar County never got a frequency. Jones County had one for a while and it closed up. And Clinton County has had a couple, but for the city of Clinton only. So Macoconut was fortunate to have assignment of a radio station frequency. We didn't like the idea that we couldn't broadcast at night, and FM was starting to be very popular. So we decided to just look for a FM frequency for KMAQ, and that occurred about almost 10 years later, in 1968, I think it was, when we found 95.3 available. We used that first, and then later changed to 95.1. So with the addition of the FM station, the reason we wanted that is because we could do nighttime broadcasting, and especially do football broadcast and basketball broadcast. So that was a big, important year for KMAQ, its first 12 years on the air downtown. And so we did a lot of broadcast of football and basketball. And a little bit about the outline of our studios. We had the long stairway upstairs. The office contained a small room for the manager, and the two office help. They were able to look over Main Street. And then there was a very small room where people could come and watch what was going on in the control room through a window. So we'd have a lot of people, especially students, that would make the long stairway trip and peer through the window and watch us do the broadcasting in our control room, in our announcing room. Then we had, off of that, we had another room, a small one like I have here at KMAQ, where we could interview people. Then there was the newsroom behind that, and in the corner of the newsroom was a small restroom. And there also was something that was very common in radio in those days, and that was a teletype machine. In order for us to get state news and national news, we didn't have networks like Radio Iowa or ABC or NBC. We had to get all of our news and weather and farm markets off of a teletype machine. And it was a big typewriter that was hooked up to a telephone wire and telephone line. And it would run 24 hours a day, continuously printing news. So when you walked into a radio station, it was that distinct sound that you knew you were in a radio station, because throughout the building you could hear that teletype go. And we used that teletype machine for probably 25 years before those machines were put out of service, and we went to network broadcasting with satellites. So every day when you came to work, you had to go through that news and take out the news and markets that you wanted to use that day, and throw a lot of it away that you were not going to use. That was a part of the day. And that is the layout of our studios. We had a back stairway which led down to the alley below. We had a little porch where we had a thermometer, and we could check the temperature on a regular basis. sophisticated, but it all helped bring hometown radio to Maquoketa. I could go on and on and on. Nancy Myers was hired as a traffic girl after graduating from high school. I think it was in 1962, and we had needed a new traffic person, so I ended up hiring Nancy Myers, and about 6 months or so later, I guess, we started dating, and I ended up marrying Nancy, and we had 40-some years together, and she was so started working in radio with me. My time is gone. All I can say is that it's been a great 63 years, and we just get the highlights of the first 12. We had a big fire, of course, in 1970 at the station, and that resulted in moving downtown across from the Decker Hotel, where we are now. That was 50 years ago, and a lot of things, of course, happened beyond that. And someday I'll go into more detail on, of course, the years following the move downtown. And I became involved in many, many things, including being mayor, building the station in Savannah, getting into the theater business, and that sort of thing. It's been a busy life, but it was always fun to come to work every day. A quick look at the forecast.
Anyway, sorry about all the glitches and the things that didn't work. By now, I bet you have more questions for Tom. Or maybe Tom has thought of more things that he's staring at me, more things that he might like to tell us. Or Sheri.
No, I'll tell you about the fire downtown.
Okay, come. Sheri's going to talk to us about the fire downtown.
Most of the time when there's something big that happens, it goes to the newspaper. The newspaper takes pictures and there's stories and things like that. Well, Maquoketa's downtown fire was a big deal. It happened in the middle of the night. And it's one of those things that Tommy was a firefighter at that time, in addition to everything else he does. And so at 2 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings and it's him, and he says, "There's a big fire downtown, you gotta get there." Okay, so I did. And you think, well, geez, this is radio. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to take pictures because we could put it on Dennis's blog that he had. Plus, I also was working for the Quad City Times at that time. And so the pictures that I took of the fire and everything were, you know, in the front page of the Quad City Times. They paid me very well. Dennis just paid me what he normally paid. Which wasn't very much. As you all know, radio doesn't pay very well. Anyway, after I got done, it was daylight by that time, you know, and it was still, the fire was still going strong, if you remember. So I thought, well, I should probably go over and see, because I heard Dennis was on the air. So I thought, okay, I better go over and tell him what's going on. So I go over, and we talk about it, and pretty soon we're live on the air. Now I'm not planned for that. I'm not, you know. So you have to just talk, which is something he had taught me to do. And although I have a natural ability that I just talk, and if you're a reporter, you know what to say. So I talked about what was going on downtown. Pretty soon we're sitting in the AM stage, in this AM studio doing this, and I see this person running down the hall, and that person is covered in ice. And I'm thinking, what was that? I turned to Dennis, I said, there's a man, we're on the air of course, there's a man that just ran down the hall covered in ice. And he says, well, who do you think that was? I have no idea. So I try to go out, but I don't see him. Obviously he went back to the bathroom. Pretty soon, he comes walking up. It's Mayor Tom. Dressed in his fire gear, totally covered in ice. And so we said, hey, can you tell us what's going on? He was mayor at that time too. And so he came in, live on the air, took the mic, went on for a while. And that's how people found out what was going on. Right away, they didn't have to wait for their newspaper, and they knew that this is what's happening. We don't have to go downtown. We're just going to we're just gonna listen to KMAQ. And we did have a huge number of people that were listening because we got phone calls that morning also saying, hey, I'm listening. You know, what else are you on? Are you just on AM? We're in both AM and FM. And they love the story about the mayor.
All right, thank you so much for coming to, at the last minute, coming to help us out today. I just want to say, you know, the Historical Society is the home to the Iowa Orphan Train Research Center. So all of the records that there are pertaining to people who rode the orphan train and got off in Iowa, we do have. And Sheri, we have Sheri, the newspaper woman. She writes wonderful articles for magazines and other things as well. And she wrote 2 very outstanding articles for us about the orphan train and our little thing that was going on here. And they were so well received. They were in Our Iowa Magazine, or Iowa Magazine. Our Iowa Magazine. Anyway, and so she helped us out such a great deal with that. We've had a lot of people coming in who knew that someone in their family had ridden on the orphan train and came in to do research and things like that. So these 2 through the years have done so much to help out the Historical Society, and one more time, and I just appreciate them. So thank you. All right, thank you everybody for coming. I'm sorry about all our glitches and our non-working. It couldn't be operator error because we got 2 very special people that are, so if it was just me, for sure it's operator error. So thank you so very much for coming.